Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Norris at Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our good Sam Clement, but today we have a very special guest. It is Annie Norris, all the way from Charleston, South Carolina, and yeah, there is a relation. She's my daughter. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing fantastically. And Annie, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you guys for asking. However, I'm kind of curious whether or not other people closer to your age are going to be doing fantastic, as you all say that you are, after they have to start paying back their student loans.
Starting back this month.
Yeah, just starting back, and this is after a big moratorium, COVID, pandemic. You don't have to pay them back for a while, and then the president's throwing ideas about, we'll forgive this, we'll forgive that, if you have all that. Well, I got to tell you, all of a sudden, if nothing changes this month, a lot of people are going to be feeling a lot lighter in their pocketbooks.
Yeah, I think the total amount was close to $2 trillion, and the average payment's looking to be about $500, $600.
Is it
That's
that
a lot.
much?
It's a lot of money on average. Obviously, some are going to be less, and some are going to be a lot more. But overall, that's a lot of money that's going to start coming out of people's pockets.
Well, the thing about it is, just by sheer luck and happenstance, Annie doesn't have any student loans from going through undergraduate. So imagine this one, Boo.
I'm also just really smart. I didn't have to pay for college at all.
No, you didn't. Someone else paid for your college. But the thing is, can you imagine what your budget would be right now? 3 months after not paying your student loans and all of a sudden getting used to it? After all, you spend pretty much what you bring in. And then all of a sudden, one whammy, imagine your budget with $500 less because you're paying for college right now. How do you think that would impact your life?
I by a lot. I feel like that would be the worst for a little bit.
I think part of the problem too is
That sounds awful.
for several years
Truthfully,
having
yeah.
$500.
Yeah.
But no, I think part of the problem is people. For the most part, knew that this was going to come back at some point. I'm
Yeah.
sure some people banked on it, but I don't think people financially planned for it to come back. I think planning for it to come back and financially planning for it to come back. People weren't setting aside if their payment is $500 a month and planning on, they're probably spending that money, and then that's going to have to come out of somewhere.
It's going to have to come out of somewhere, either rents, evenings out, what have you. However, it's not just young people that are getting kind of surprised by some sense of return to normalcy. Sam, for years we were talking about how at some point rates have to go back up. Mm-hmm. We got down to 25 basis points in overnight lending target. At some point, someone was going to have to give. But how many banks were all of a sudden upside down when all of a sudden rates went back and everyone knew they're going to have happen? The same thing with maybe a lot of people with student loans. Instead of taking some portion of that money that they were supposed to have paid and put it in a high yield savings account, heck, even put it in a monthly Vanguard account or something like that, have a little something. Instead, people probably took the extra cash and used it for a number of other things other than saving to pay it back.
And I think what's concerning too is if you used it for something else that you took a loan out for, whether that's a car payment now or what have you. But if that makes it much harder to cut back on your budget, if it's not just shopping more or eating out more, that's probably a little easier than having to sell your car.
All right, Annie. Now here comes the questions. I'm going to throw this one right at you. This is going to be about an 85-mile-per-hour fastball straight down the middle of the plate. You know it's coming. Maybe just a two-seamer. There's just no movement on it. What would you give up if all of a sudden you had to start shelling out $300 to $500 a month in student loans? All right.
I guess living in my apartment, groceries.
Anything else you'd give up? All right, living in your apartment, living on the street.
Groceries. Yeah.
But you know something? That's the negative side of it. The positive side of it.
No more rent.
No more rent. Nice suntan from Charleston, South Carolina,
That's true.
and
you'll
you'll look like a model because you'll lose so much weight and all that.
Perfect.
So that's the positive side of it. But in all seriousness, I do feel for your guys' generation because a lot of the stuff that just involves just kind of living, I think has gone up much more
Yeah.
rapidly than when I was around. I mean, for instance, I just took a look at it. If I want to go see Oppenheimer, and Sam's been pestering me, that's maybe not the right verb.
Yeah, it's really
yeah,
good.
It's great. I think I mentioned it twice. So
He's been pestering me to see this movie.
every morning I come in and said, "Did you see it yesterday?"
He's been riding me like nobody's business. But a ticket, I think, is $13.49.
No, it's ridiculous. Like,
It was
everything
20
has
for
gone
me.
so
When
up.
all said and done, I paid $20.
And then you have to get
How did you do
popcorn, you
that?
have to get a drink,
Where?
you have to get snacks.
Why is it $13.50 for me?
I don't
Say
know.
the senior discount.
It totally could
It
be the
might have
senior
been.
discount.
Well, it's also probably the day of the week. It's Tuesday. I think you
I
saw
saw it on a Sunday night, though. So
Yeah,
I don't know. In any event.
In any event, I think the average ticket price in the Birmingham metro area is about $15. In New York, it's all upwards of $28 or what have you.
It was
And-
22 in Charleston.
And Annie's absolutely right. And when I go to the theater, which is very infrequently, part of the ceremony is getting a soda and getting a bag of popcorn. The next thing you know, if I take my wife there, I might as well do a whole lot of other things besides
Yeah.
watching a movie.
And we've talked about for 2 years, people's budgets have gotten much tighter.
Yeah.
And wages haven't really kept up across the spectrum.
No.
Things are getting more expensive. Savings rates have come back down to normal levels and have actually gone below normal levels from the most recent number. So people are having to squeeze their budget already. So it's hard for me to imagine a cumulative close to $2 trillion having to be paid back over however many years doesn't have a significant impact, because a lot of people do have student debt.
Well, I'm going to tell you, this is the point in the program where I throw that old caveat out there. Anything that we say here at Trading Perspectives is our opinions alone, not necessarily those of Oakworth Capital Bank or any of its other board of directors, other shareholders, stakeholders, all that stuff. And any decisions you make in your investment portfolio based on what you hear here are at your own peril. All right? Pretty good with that?
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, I think maybe some of the people that are going to be hit the hardest are fast casual dining establishments, and maybe even fast food, because I got to tell you, some of these places are now frightfully expensive. I got all over my son like a bad habit, almost as bad as Sam did in getting me to see the Oppenheimer movie. I got all over John this summer because he was always short of cash. Always short of cash. We still giving him an allowance to go to summer school down in Auburn. He's working about 35 hours a week. Why is he always so broke? Until I took him out to lunch one day and I figured out. I mean, there is no way for young people to save money down there. We went to a place called Nukes. Nukes is a sandwich joint, 13 states, mostly in the southeast. And out of 10, how would you rate a Nukes?
Like a 6, 7.
And you, Boo, how would you rate a Nukes?
Maybe like 4 or 5.
Okay, and I would rate it probably around a 5 or 6. So we're kind of in that middle tier. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't
I
hate
like
it when
the
I
cups.
go,
The
but
cups are
The
fun.
cups are fantastic. I've got a red Nukes cup I drink out of, and although I do wash it occasionally. I took John out to lunch, and he got a sandwich and a thing of macaroni and cheese as a side. I got a sandwich and the complimentary, I'm putting that in air quotes, bag of chips, sodas, tax, and then all of a sudden they spun the the screen around, obligatory, boom, just kind of blindly hit a number. I spent $36.
I spent 27 at Chick-fil-A yesterday.
And I mean, just that.
Not just for myself, though. Sorry. Let me make that clear.
Big girl.
It was 2 meals
that
though.
sandwich.
That's my girl.
It was 2
She had 2
meals.
fried chickens and a Coke.
No, it was 2 meals and it was $27. So everything's just so expensive right
So
now.
when you think about that, I mean, seriously, just going out and getting a sandwich, people that will go to a Nukes are probably people, I would say primarily between 20 and 35, their target sort of market. Who in the world can afford that consistently?
Yeah.
When all of a sudden they're going to have to shell back out close to $500 on average that they haven't had to pay for the last 3 years.
And I think traveling to me was going to be the first kind of easy answer. You know, you take one trip out, travel once less a month. That's, easily $500 if you're including flights, hotels, whatever. But we're not seeing the travel part of it happen yet. The data, people are flying more than they have even right before COVID. Labor Day travel was at a peak, a 5-year peak. So we're just still seeing so many people travel. And even with the consumer data, we're still seeing people spend money. And I think this is something that's going to take months to figure out because, people are going to probably not the first month, go ahead and cut all the stuff out that they're going to eventually need to, try and make their budget work, squeeze it a little bit tighter, maybe not save anything if you were saving a little at first until you really reach that pain point.
I would agree. And, also I mentioned just kind of the fast casual places. I picked on Nukes a little bit. It's not just Nukes and McAllister's and all of them. They're all about the same.
I'd say all restaurants.
Yeah, shoot, Beth and I went to a Wendy's in Orangeburg, South Carolina. It was not this past weekend, the weekend before that, coming back from Charleston after seeing Annie. And, just a number 1 meal and a number 7 meal combo, medium size, set us back $26.
Yeah.
I mean, that's at Wendy's. It's very average. I mean, I'd give it a 4. It's just it's expensive. But where I was kind of going with this is, I feel sorry for your generation more so than mine, in a lot of ways, because I think so much more is expected out of you all. If you catch my drift, like bachelor parties, bachelorette parties, things that you're supposed to do. I mean, heck, even the type of booze that you drink, everything's been elevated a notch. A lot more than a notch. Just bachelorette parties seem to be costing 4 figures, which is a lot of money for young people. Yeah. Bachelor parties cost a lot more than they used to. And just little things like, I was taking a look at this. 6-pack of Corona. What's that going to set you back?
$8, $9, $10.
No. I mean, not at my grocery store. That'll set you back about 10 to 11 at the Winn-Dixie.
I was about to say, what grocery store are you going to?
Going to the Winn-Dixie. A 6-pack of Corona, the tall boys.
$10.99 is.
Yeah, about $10.99 or what have you. But it's all of a sudden you start going, gee whiz, what happened to the cheap beer? What happened to the cheap trips? What happened to the sucker me into the restaurant with 25-cent wings and 50-cent drafts? All that stuff is not there any longer at all, and you guys are largely paying full freight.
It's a keeping up with the Joneses thing, and we've talked about how social media makes that worse.
I hadn't thought about that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, Annie, do you think social media is kind of maybe a pressurer to get young people to spend money that they shouldn't?
I think it just depends. Depends on the person.
Well, how about you? How's it impacted you?
I guess not really, but I'm not like crazy about my social media presence either.
I think even if you're not on it though, it's like the people around you, like these
like,
bachelor
their life
parties,
looks so fun, or like
somebody
fun.
else on their bachelor trip instead of going downtown for a night is traveling somewhere, and everyone's going down to Florida and paying for flights, and just because that's what their friends did.
Well, that's why I got off of Facebook the first time. I think that's probably a little bit more of a pressure point for you guys in your generation. For me, even so, it's like, why does my life suck so bad? Take a look at it. Everyone's
so so depressing.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it's kind of like I've got this daughter, got these dogs. No, but you kind of take a look at it. It seems like everyone's out spending a lot of money on fancy meals, or they're on fancy vacations, or they're doing this, that, and the other thing. And I'm going, what am I doing here? I'm in any event. But kind of going back to the point on hand, kind of thinking about it, all of these kids, and mostly kids, kids by relative to me, by comparison, they have to start paying that money back pretty shortly. Mm-hmm. And I think it might be about a 2 or 3 month, maybe two quarter lag. And then all of a sudden, I think everything that you're talking about, Sam, I think the travel, all of a sudden you're going to see an abrupt halt with that type of stuff. And I do think you're going to see an abrupt halt with people going out to restaurants and bars the way that they are. And that could finally put a little bit of a dent in the old labor markets that,
Well, yeah, and entry-level jobs aren't paying as much as they used to with the cost of living going, so...
And you see, I don't know the actual stat about the amount of people that can pay for $1,000 emergency is like half the country, maybe. It's crazy how much of our entire country can't really afford these shock bills or payments. And I think for a lot of people, whether it should be or not, this is going to be kind of a shock to them. I think even if you know it's coming, I think it's still going to catch a lot of people off guard and kind of fit into that surprise expense category that a lot of the country can't pay for.
This is where I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. When Beth came out of graduate school and I came out of my 1 year of ill-fated law school, which we had some student loans, not a ton, not the 250,000 that the New York Times likes to throw out all the time. But we still had to pay a decent amount of our monthly budget back to whoever we borrowed the money from. I guess is Sally Mae or whoever it was at the time. And we just did it, didn't think anything about it. You had to do what you had to do. You borrowed the money and you had to pay it back. We weren't expecting people to pay it back for us. We got a little bit of help from parents later on. I'm certainly not going to say that we didn't. But at the same time, there are plenty of times when we're just looking for, hey, let's have Mexican night at the house and fix bean burritos. How does that sound to you, Bill?
I know, so imagine that for y'all way back in the day. And prices of colleges have now gone up like so much. Like I was talking about it with Gone Pops. Like when you went to Wake Forest, it was like a quarter, if not like an eighth of what it is now.
It's about an eighth of what it is now.
So that's probably why your student loans aren't as high as people going to college now.
You think?
1,000%. So you being like, it's not that number that they throw around. It's like, yeah, because it was like a long time ago.
Couple
you need
nickels
to be
a
careful.
semester.
You need to be pretty careful there.
A wheat penny for
yeah. That's how I paid it. Wheat pennies and a couple of chickens.
I gave a few goats to the government, and we were all clear.
So we did that type of thing. But even so, when all of a sudden we didn't have to pay those loans back any longer, it felt like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
It felt like I got that load off my chest. It's going to be the almost exact opposite feeling that people have now, going, oh my gosh, I'm breathing just fine now. Let's go put this 50-pound weight on your chest and see how you do then, buddy. Sam, your thoughts?
Yeah, again, like you said, kind of in reverse, people make that joke when they are done paying for their kids' college about, oh, I got a raise, because you don't have that added expense anymore. But they're not really like pre-planning that, even on the positive side of it. And so I definitely don't think people are pre-planning, again, at least in the data, and I just think anecdotally with how humans think, that people aren't planning for this, and it is going to come as a shock. Whether they know it's coming this month, when they see it and they actually have to pay for it, and figuring out how to pay for it, that's different than knowing it's coming down the pipe.
Yeah. So Annie, in Charleston, South Carolina, if you just had to throw a number at it, or throw just sort of your ideas at it, what do you think all of a sudden will be hit the worst by young people staying at home and not going out?
Well, I don't think as many people are going to be moving into Charleston, South Carolina, because they won't be able to afford it. So I guess, going out will definitely go down too, because you won't be able to live there.
It'll be interesting what it does to some of the degrees that people are getting out of college, and how that changes perception, and probably even changes perception of people going to college.
Yeah, without a doubt. However, I will tell you this, for people that don't have that student loan weight on them, it could actually be pretty cool. Because of all of a sudden, not as many people going to restaurant and bars, the demand might be going down. If the supply doesn't shrink, what happens to prices?
Yeah. My hesitation is, I figured we would have seen a lot of this, even without the student loans, just how bad inflation has been.
Yeah.
I figured, I think all of us would have probably thought we would have seen that already a little bit.
Yeah.
And it just seems like people just keep figuring out ways to spend money. And people have been waiting for this death knell for 18 months for the economy, and for people to finally quit spending money, and it just hasn't happened. So, it's, I don't know where it would come from, but I kind of think that maybe people are going to figure out a way to make it work again.
Well, I know that Beth and I perhaps a little bit more cognizant about how much money we spend at restaurants, and I think I might have told you last week, I haven't ordered anything off of DoorDash in a month, and they're getting almost crazy with the way that they truly are pestering me. Hey, give you this value, and all this and the other thing. I will tell you though that if and when we do get that, and prices at restaurants and bars go down, and the rent doesn't keep on going up because not as many people moving into Charleston, someone like Annie could be all of a sudden feel as though, maybe feeling a little bit better about the old wallet situation. Wouldn't that be nice, Boo?
I think so. Yeah, I guess, if that happens.
What do you think the likelihood of it is?
Can't say.
I don't think it's very likely.
Yeah, I don't.
You see,
about that.
I mean, we're so cynical. You've got to look at it.
People still go to New York.
It's a beautiful sky out there.
Yeah,
today.
nobody's gonna stop moving to New York. Like that's and I think that's
People
why
are moving out of New York.
I
right
think
now.
it's older people mostly moving out of New York. I still, again, anecdotally, I know. I mean, that's the big city that people want to go to, and for the South, it's been Nashville for a lot of people, and Atlanta for more so people that aren't from Atlanta and don't realize how bad of a city it is, in my opinion.
Yeah. But they're getting away with raising the rent because people are like finding ways to make it work to stay there because they want to be there.
And don't forget Charlotte. Charlotte's been
Yeah,
pretty hot too,
yeah.
and Raleigh. So, all right, well, it's going to be interesting to see, and some people might not find it interesting as much as terrifying, but it should be pretty interesting to see exactly what happens when young people have to start paying back the loans that they said that they would repay. In a lot
How
of ways.
awful that is.
That's just the way that kind of works, and hope that they have saved some money for that. But even so, it will probably lead to a disruption in economic activity. And I think some sectors will get hurt worse than others. I think leisure and hospitality certainly will, and because money's got to come from somewhere in order to pay back the government for your college or even graduate school education. And it remains to be seen exactly what that means for the overall economy, what that means for the labor markets as well. However, intuitively, it's probably not a good thing.
Probably not, but we'll see if people can pull a rabbit out of a hat again.
Well, let's hope so. All right, guys, with that, we always love to hear from y'all. So if you have any comments or questions, please, by all means, let us know. You can always drop us a line at tradingperspectives@oakworth.com, or you can leave us a review on the podcast outlet of your choice. As always, if you're interested in reading more, hearing more of what we have to say or what we think, you can always go to oakworth.com, take a look underneath the Thought Leadership tab, and find links to all kinds of exciting information, including previous podcasts. It would be interesting if we had links to future podcasts.
You could, like, coming next or coming soon.
Yeah, but okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Links to
Possible.
previous blogs and newsletters, known as Common Sense, as well as links to our quarterly magazine, Macro and Market. With that, guys, we're going to give you one last chance to have something to say on this topic.
That's all I got.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, thank you for coming, Boo. Y'all take care.